Greetings, fellow adventurers, and welcome to the Couple of Nerds podcast. I'm DnDWife, the creator of DnDWifeStories.com, and your co-host. Joining me is the man behind the screen, my brilliant dungeon master, and also my husband, Eguile. Say hi, Eguile.
Hey everyone, excited to be here sharing our nerdy adventures with all of you.
Absolutely. So what's Couple of Nerds all about? Well, we're diving into the realms of Extraeus, sharing our experiences, playing D&D in our apartment, and exploring the intricate tapestry of relationships both in and out of the game.
And we got some exciting segments for you all, from lore deep dives to crafting tips, artwork showcases, and relationship advice on and off the table. We've got a little bit of everything for every kind of adventurer.
So whether you're a seasoned adventurer or a tabletop newbie, we invite you to join us today. Tune in, relax, and enjoy the magic of Couple of Nerds. May your rolls be natural 20s and your adventures be legendary. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Couple of Nerds. I'm your host, DnDWife, and with me is my co-host, Dungeon Master and husband, Eguile.
How's it going, everyone?
Welcome. And we also have our recurring guest here, Entlynk, our digital artist. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you again for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Today in our Comic Cave segment, we're going to be talking specifically about our approach to all things art and design. We're also going to be talking about your artwork for our campaign, specifically the character portrait for the character Bricky, which we met in a previous episode during his interview with Luna. So we're going to be actually seeing what he looks like here, or at least talking about what he looks like, and then showing the artwork in our Discord and on YouTube as well later. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about first how you compose the artwork. This is a turnaround sort of portrait where we show different sides of Bricky. Yeah. And so how did you come up with like what he was going to wear, how you were going to pose him?
Definitely taking a lot of what I remember from the table play and, consulting with the player, not like overly so, but I definitely like, this is my interpretation. I know I was told that he's our resident Frankenstein character. So he's going to be, the motif is all stitches.
Understatement.
Raggedy.
And, I know that the big thing was like his trench coat. So that
that's
was like the big piece. Exactly. So that's kind of like the big features in my head. But I know you actually brought the idea of doing the turnaround up, which I thought was cool. And I kind of ran with it to get kind of all angles of the character, which is really nice, but also a good challenge on my part. So specifically in that way, I relied a lot on like the 3D modeling aspect, just so that I can make sure that like I'm getting the proportions correctly and I'm just like lining everything up. And then once that base was there, I kind of like let go and started adding all of the little stitched up details, you know.
That's cool. So let's talk about a little bit of what he looks like. So he's just kind of like a really tall dude in a trench coat. He's got big boots on. They kind of remind me of like German clogs, but boots.
Definitely.
He's also got like this sort of almost shoulder length long raggedy hair, and like you said, he's got stitches. But my favorite part about this portrait, I think, is that little green glow you put in his eye. I thought that was, because it's a black and white portrait for now, that little touch of color makes it so spot on.
I definitely wanted to use that as kind of like this is very visual, of course, but it's a nod to the narrative in the story that we'll see unravel later on. I'm sure in more Traveler's Chronicles and lore drops coming up. But I definitely wanted to incorporate that because it definitely feels essential to the character having actually like played through. So.
And I gotta commend you on the hands on this portrait, because I know for a fact hands are the worst thing to draw. They are so finicky, and just a one line wrong and they can look all sorts of weird. So you did a great job here with composition.
Thank you. Every artist's worst nightmare, but you know, practice and eventually you'll get some decent hands.
Yeah.
I promise.
And so tell us a little bit like the techniques that you used in order to achieve some of the textures on here. I see on his trench coat, he's got a lot of patchwork of different colors and shades in black and white gradient, but still they've got a significant difference from each other. And so how did you come up with those different technicals?
I had it in my head that I need him to look kind of like wear and tear. So I'm thinking like blotches or some sort, because, you know, like you said, I'm working more in like a grayscale, so I have to convey just that texture.
Yeah.
And what I did was I found like, I can't remember the specific brush, but I took like just a texture that I really liked, that I thought looked maybe like weathered leather, and I like blew it up really large so you could really see that that texture.
Yeah.
And then I would lower this brush size and put it on transparency so I can get that same texture but in like a negative, so it doesn't just look like one like kind of perfect blotch. So I was able to kind of push and pull until it kind of like looked a little more natural, and so I could work it into like make it look like a fabric.
Yeah. And these are the darker spots. Those are the leather spots that you worked on, I imagine.
I figure the whole thing is probably different types of leather, but with his kind of macabre, like edgy style that he's going for, like I'm assuming they're just different types of skins, you know,
different
I don't know.
Animals, hopefully.
We hope.
Well, yeah, let's say that.
Right, animals, sure. One of the things I wanted to point out about this portrait that I thought was really cool is this back area. It looks like he split it open at some point just through a flex of strength or something happened, right? Everyone's had that moment where something like splits down a seam or something. And I think it's really cool to see how it just kind of sort of slapshot got stitched back up real quick.
I do like that idea, and I love that because that's like not what I had in mind, but it totally plays with his character, and like it really builds itself in that way, like because that is kind of where I started with the coat, was like part of his like story was that he was like Mod Podge together.
Yeah.
And so I figure, you know, why would it be any different with his clothing?
Right.
Because the Undabarians, as I've understood through the game, is they're very utilitarian. So they're not going to let that stuff go to waste just because it looks kind of, you know, not brand new.
And from what we know, he wasn't exactly, you know, high on the totem pole in that area. So it wasn't like he was going to get the best of things given to him.
Exactly. No
especially to
upgrades
wear.
yet.
Yeah. Fashion is the last thing on somebody's mind for a person like Bricky. But you did such a great job, I think, of conveying that sort of ruggedness that we don't normally get from different portraits. It just depends on what kind of vibe they're going for. So I like the grittiness of this one.
Yeah, and I think that also is kind of interesting with a character like Bricky too, because obviously there's going to be more versions of him that are going to come out over time, because we already have Ricky 2.0 now in the campaign, which is drastically different from what he is now.
So I think that'll be fun too, to see that sort of character development if we ever do get a portrait later of Bricky 2.0, or perhaps even just like any later version. I think would look super different.
Just to see how, I mean, every character will have that as they grow and change in the story. It'll be really cool to compare them.
Yeah, I'd like to do a side by side eventually and be like, what changed, you know, in this time, and then be able to say this is the time that elapsed in Extraeus between this and this portrait, and so you kind of get a sense of time of how things progressed. So I really like that. So tell me a little bit of like maybe some hard artistic decisions you had to make with this portrait. Is there anything that you struggled with to include or not include?
Definitely, like starting out, it was trying out different like poses and expressions, because like, you know, we have characters like the cleric cooks in heels and stuff like that, and the barbarian swings their sword, but like, what does Bricky do? I don't think we're there yet.
Bricks.
Yeah.
Right? But we haven't had the opportunity yet.
He's
like,
just a big, strong, you know, person.
But
with a mysterious power.
Yeah.
Right. So I wanted to give him maybe like a calm but like thoughtful expression, or like maybe he's like standing or looming over, because currently that's kind of what he does. He kind of watches and protects, which kind of goes into the choice of color too, because he has different colors for his
different
eyes
people,
to signify different
things.
Oh yeah, it's very important.
And so the figuring out the green color was probably, at least for me, since it has to do with Bogbean's character.
Oh, I like that.
Figuring that out, I was like, you know, this was such a significant moment for me, being like, ooh, that's what green means? I thought it meant something
else.
nicer.
Yeah,
You know?
something better than what it is. But I really like that you gave him such a kind of solemn but also empty expression, and I think that does embody Bricky a little bit, especially when we learn later some things that can happen to him that can cause some of that emptiness. So I really like this sort of dichotomy that we give.
Yeah, and I mean, it really shows just how much of a story you can portray just on this like simple, story or this image of him. And you already, without actually hearing our campaign, you kind of can see what is already affecting this character. Excuse me.
I really appreciate hearing that from you guys too, just to know that like the feeling is coming off the way that I wanted it to, and like you actually see, that whole cliche, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Like you can actually really like get a feel for Bricky.
Oh, I mean, it looks totally amazing.
Yeah, I'm super in love with it too.
Stop.
So yeah,
I can't handle it.
We're gonna give you a big head.
Oh yeah.
But I really want to talk about moving on here. Talk about how we approach the difference right between, because I'm trying to learn how to do more landscapes in the digital sector, and so how do we approach the different types of artwork that we do, right? So how do you approach portraits and its composition versus how I approach landscapes and their composition?
Yeah, I'm super interested in comparing these different approaches, personally, and just like the mode of art that it is. But for me, I'm always looking for a good reference, and actually drawing the figure, I'm looking for like to get my proportions correct. Like I'll spend a ton of time in like the quote unquote ugly stage, because you really need those like
to fiddle
shapes.
with.
Yeah, you really need that to be correct, or else you're like 5 hours in and it kind of looks awful and you want to scrap it.
Yeah.
So I think that really focusing on like the fundamental shapes and having a good reference is really important for my work. How do you go about approaching landscapes on the flip side?
Yeah, it's a little different, right? Because there's no proportion, so I don't have to worry about if the limbs match up with the head or anything like that. But I do have to worry about making a landscape too busy. So adding too many things can sometimes just mess it up. So like for the night landscape that I did for the Extraeus night sky, that is meant to look busy because there's so many stars visible, right? And then we have the big moon, but the stars are meant to be part of the background. So it's not really as busy. It's not in the forefront. What's really in the forefront are the two moons. But when we go to something where it's like an actual landscape that we're talking about, like rolling hills or something like that, you've got to be careful to, not to put trees in a certain place, or to make sure the mountain looks proportional to the distance that it's at. So there are certain decisions you have to make, and references, I think, is something that we both share in common as being something we use to kind of get those proportions right. In our own different ways.
Definitely. I think for any type of art, references are so underrated, and finding good references too can sometimes be difficult.
I could spend quite a few hours just surfing Google for the right image that I think would fit best.
I don't know if you do this, but sometimes if I'm having if it's not just flowing onto the page, I will take a break, and my literal preparation session before drawing something is just Pinterest. I'm just looking for a mood board almost of stuff that I'm trying to reference.
That is a good idea. I might adopt that. I've had Pinterest, and I had Pinterest for a long time. I just haven't used it in a while, so I think I might bring that back.
Mood, right? I literally never think about it until I need references, and I'm just like, oh, you know what? It's a good place for that.
Yeah, Pinterest. Very good idea. I'm definitely going to be stealing that one. And I think another difference between the portrait landscape sort of mediums is the way that we approach mood, right? So you have to be a lot more expressive in the sort of facial expression that happens in a person, whereas I have to focus on lighting and composition a little bit more to give a mood off. So how do you decide on kind of the mood that you're going for?
That's a really good point. I definitely find myself making some of the expressions that I'm trying to invoke, just because I'm feeling how it's pushing and pulling my own face. So I'm just okay, this is where the forms are moving or whatever, if that makes any sense. But,
yeah, because you get to feel where the muscles are supposed to go, so you kind of understand where to put them.
Yeah, you can definitely be your own reference a lot of the times, especially if you're doing something like really in particular. Like there was a previous piece that I did for you guys of a previous campaign for the character Hippolyta. She had like the different the scimitars.
Yeah.
I had to take that reference photo of myself like on a timer because I couldn't find
cool.
like an actual one. So
But that's
like
so cool.
I was swinging spatulas as swords in my house.
that is commitment
That's
right
dope.
there. I will commend that any day. So that I like
you.
that. Yeah, that's a good way to approach it, and I think we should do more of that too. You know, put ourselves in that sort to see how that feels.
Yeah.
I think it helps the artwork.
And I think even you might be able to translate that to landscape by like photo bashing. I know that's like really big for a lot of professional artists will just photo bash like a quick background and then like zoom in on the composition that they like the most. And then they'll like draw off of that because they kind of have the forms set in their mind.
A basic sort of shape to go off of, and then you can build on that.
They're
for,
like, all
for
right,
your
I know
own.
this works, or in the ballpark of that, you know?
Oh, I like that a lot. Yeah, that's a good one to do. And I think it's also how we are able to portray the storytelling aspect of our campaign, right? It's how we tell what's going on. So for Bricky, we see this light emanating from his eyes and a sort of like far off look. So it definitely feels like he's analyzing something or, you know, thinking very heavily about something in specific that he's looking at.
How would you say that is like the conveying of mood for landscapes? Like you've mentioned it before, but is it more like there's lighting and then I imagine it's the type of like life in the photo, if there's any like wildlife?
Yeah,
in
it
the
just
distance?
depends, right? If it's just static, where it's just like maybe a house, a hill, some trees, a mountain in the background or something like that.
That's peaceful,
right? It's peaceful. And so in order to convey a sort of peaceful tone, I might want a more cheery sort of lighting. So I'll do a nice warm lighting on it. And so, since our sun is blue and the sky is green, that's a little difficult to convey, but I think a nice yellow sort of effect coming from those two color
warm
streams.
colors for sure.
Yeah, that might help it as well. And then if we want to go, let's say for a more somber mood, I might use a darker blue sort of hue to convey that.
Maybe like high contrast where like the darks are so dark, but the lights stand out.
Use a lot of shadow to convey like a gloom, a sort of gothic perspective, which I love the gothic artists. They are my favorites. So I really like doing kind of the gloom. So I think I'll have a lot of fun with Undevar's landscape.
Oh, I can't wait to see that.
Because I don't know if I mentioned it before, but my big inspiration are some of the more gothic artists like Edvard Munch. I really like that sort of work where with the dark perspectives and very little lighting to just convey that sort of the darkness that oppresses in around things. I'm very gloomy, but I kind of I just really like that sort of gothic look.
It's very compelling style, and I think, like you said, it's going to work really well for Undevar. So I'm excited to see what comes out of
That'll
that
be
for
fun.
sure. And how would you say that you? Because I know we both do we try to do a lot of art on the side, just because, like, you know, but finding time for those hobbies is like difficult when you have life to worry about. So like I commend you, and you know we're all our support system here for keeping on.
We all have our struggle.
It's tough. I'm not gonna lie. I still haven't completed the water challenge we set in like
girls. Same.
It's the not the previous one, but the one before that is when we set the challenge. So it's been quite a few weeks, and I still haven't fully completed it yet. So it's just life sometimes gets in the way. You know, we have work, we have other things we have to do, other commitments, and so it can get tough. What I'm trying to do now is once I got all my chores done and I have some free time, I like to sit in, you know, on my couch or something and just start something.
Starting is the hardest part. Like there's literally all these other things that you could be doing or that you want to do, like doom scroll or something. Right. I find myself wanting to do that. But just having my laptop out at all times so I can just like flip it open. Like just having it within reach is half the battle, I find.
Yeah, I will say it's a lot easier now that I bought a tablet specifically for digital artwork, and I can work on it exclusively. It's become a lot easier for me to get into it and set aside time for it as well, because then I don't have to get out all my supplies to sketch something, or I don't have to like sit on my phone trying to get details into a really small screen.
Totally. The portability, I'm sure, helps a lot, because that's my workstation. I'm in a very small apartment.
Yeah.
Smaller than you guys. And
team apartment.
Woo. My workstation is on the couch, like 5 feet away from my the gamer setup for my man. So like it's really interesting to like fit that all together.
Yeah, it can be tough. Like you said, our apartment's a little bigger, so we are a little better off in terms of space. I can come into our office. I can go into our living room. And so, we got a little space to move around. But yeah, it's just about finding time to just get started. Even if it's just a doodle real quick, if it gets the juices flowing, then you can really start getting in on the big projects.
And sometimes a doodle is enough, because or those Pinterest sessions are enough, because that is planning. That is still something that you've done to like, that you don't have to do next time.
I like also the idea of setting your own sort of deadlines. Just even if it isn't something that you have a deadline for, we've asked for, certain portraits from you that don't have a set deadline. That are just kind of like when you get done with it, when you feel that it's done. And so I think that gives it a little leeway for you as an artist, but then as the artist yourself, you want to also get it done eventually. So it is nice to set your own personal deadlines, even if you don't have one, just because you can be like, okay, I got to make it by this date. And so it gives you an incentive to sort of do that, a little bit of artwork every day.
Totally. It helps you structure your time. Like I'll have days where I'm just like, okay, like I really need to get this done. So these like 4 hours are dedicated to this piece or whatever. Just to like, it's like a learning curve for sure, but like jumping right into it, like you really find that balance you need to, just to know how long it's going to take a roundabout for something to be done,
or at least to give yourself time to work on it, so that you don't feel will be like too little or too long.
For sure.
It's tough to feel like you're doing something productive for a long period of time, and also for a short period of time, and not feel like you're wasting. But if you give it that specific amount, I think it helps with that. And then one thing that I really want to get into is creating a sort of art schedule for myself to maintain a sort of consistent workflow. I think that's the thing I'm going to work on next, to set those goals for myself, just because it can get a little difficult. We're starting to ramp up in the sort of landscape, and I dipped my toe in with the skies. The 2 sky pieces I did, but I really want to get in on the landscape, and I've started a little bit of doodles here and there for some of the landscapes, and so I really want to make sure I get that done and schedule that in.
For sure. Yeah, I agree on just having the for me it's hard because like I have that kind of demand avoidance where it's like, oh, as soon as something becomes something I like need to or have to do,
it's tough.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it has to be like fun, and so that's what's nice, is being able to like multitask. Or I find that sometimes the most productive times that I have are like when I'm able to be like on the Discord talking with people.
Yeah, getting
because
input.
Then it's like, you're kind of working on the side, and it's streamlining it because it is fun.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you feel like you're also doing something. You're not just sitting there doodling. You're sharing it with people. You're getting advice. You're getting feedback. So it doesn't feel like a waste of time, which I really think is fun. I think that's kind of like the point that streaming is made for, specifically if it's for artwork. It's like kind of gives you that sense of accomplishment. Like I'm doing something too. It's not just me sitting here doodling.
Exactly. It becomes more of a social thing. So then you're kind of like multitasking in that way for yourself, so you're like, oh, this is the best way to use my time.
I think a big way also to feel like the accomplishment of doing, sitting down and actually putting some time and effort into artwork is the being able to like time lapse how it got created, right? How it came to be. And so we get a lot of those videos from you on TikTok showing where it started and how it ended up. And I think that's a really important part, showing that progress too. It makes you feel, it not only feel, but like it shows you how much you've accomplished, how much you actually worked on it.
Definitely. I definitely went through that recently just because I had, I'm like 28 and I just had all 4 of my wisdom teeth removed.
Oh, so painful.
Which was rough. But I took like a week. I had to take like a week off of doing anything like quote unquote productive besides healing, just because like, you know, I did not have the strength. Yeah. And like you said earlier, like, you know, just life gets in the way. Life finds a way. So, but I like didn't let myself feel like bad about like not doing like all these other like side things because I felt like because our time management was like in a good place, I didn't like have to like worry about it so much.
Yeah, you didn't have a looming deadline.
Yeah. So like past me did me a favor so that I could like kind of like take that time and like let life run in that course.
Because you needed the time. The recovery is important, you know. Sometimes I think even we forget that we have to take moments for ourselves. We have to rest. And so being comfortable in taking that time, I think, is really important. And so there's a balance between giving yourself a deadline, but also making sure that you understand it's a sort of fluid deadline. Yeah. If you're careful about it and you do it the right way.
But that's, exactly. Like you put in the work when you can so that you can take the breaks when you need.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice, you know, making sure that you understand how to balance that, to give yourself time to, because that also makes you a better artist, right? And so I think all these things really bring it together to form like a cohesive sort of technique for approaching art, right? You just kind of got to embrace it a little bit. Finding out these little key insights, I think, was really fun. I'm super excited to discuss how we approach artwork and how we also organize ourselves. I thought that was a great thing to talk about. And I also loved going over Bricky's artwork. I thought that was super fun. What did you think about Bricky's artwork, you know?
I mean, for me, it's always nice as a DM, not only for me to see the character, but for the player to see the character.
Yeah, I think that's really important in the storytelling aspect.
Yeah, and so obviously having a digital artist who can actually draft those and the players can request them, I think it also makes a better, stronger bond with their players.
Yeah.
But then that's the fun of the DM, that it also means the stakes is higher, because not only is this character, if they were to say die, they also, all that art, all that work, it's like they don't want to make that for nothing.
It's a reminder.
It's like, I know. So it becomes this even more important to see this character survive, because not only do you have art, but also the future art.
Yeah, but I think that makes it the best, you know, when you do have, there's something on the line, you want to protect your character just because of that. So thank you so much for joining us for this discussion. I think it was a great little discussion about how we approach artwork and how everybody sort of thinks, even if they don't think they're so artistic.
No, everyone always has stuff to learn. So it's really cool to bounce ideas off. I really appreciate you guys having me back on.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Entlynk. Thank you so much for you guys listening to us. If you liked this episode, please review and subscribe, as well as join our community on our Extraeus Project Discord. We would really appreciate to hear from you, see what you think about the artwork once we post it on there, and share your experiences too about your own artwork, how you see things. Yeah, we want to see how you view the world as well, or how you view certain characters. We also are going to tease a little bit of our next episode, which I'm super excited for, our next character portrait for Tobias.
Oh, yeah.
That is going to be super fun. But thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Couple of Nerds, and have a great night. And that concludes today's journey through the realm of Couple of Nerds. We hope you had a blast exploring the intricate world of Extraeus. Don't miss out on the visual extravaganza over at our YouTube page at Couple of Nerds Podcast. It's where the magic comes to life with exclusive video segments, art previews, and a peek behind the curtain.
Dive deeper into our adventures by visiting DnDWifeStories.com, your haven for all our podcast transcripts and a treasure trove of content dedicated to the captivating universe of Extraeus.
Your unwavering support is our greatest treasure. Take a moment to weave your thoughts into a review and hit that subscribe button for an enchanting journey with Couple of Nerds.
Join us beyond the podcast in the Extraeus Project Discord. Connect with us, the creators, and even the travelers themselves. Witness the magic unfold in live drawing streams, game alongside us, and step into our digital tavern, the Bard's Haven. Share your stories and characters with fellow adventurers. Visit DnDWifeStories.com for the link to join our vibrant community.
Stay tuned for more tales, more laughs, and more insight into the world of tabletop gaming. Until then, may your dice be kind, your campaigns epic, and your adventures legendary.